Okay, we got this. And scene. Yeah, this is me trying to make movie magic happen. Yes. Hello. Welcome back. It's time once again for the 31 Days of Halloween. Indeed. Welcome to day 14. It is the 14th day of Halloween. And the vampire gave to me eternal life and a thirst for bloodies. How's that? It's the 31 Days of Halloween. We're watching a different horror movie every day in October. We're doing this, and it's really fun. I love movies. I love horror movies. I love these cheesy British Hammer horror movies. They're such a trip. They're so fun to watch. I grew up with this kind of fare on my Saturday and Sunday televisions on the UHF dial. Whatever that means to you. These are the cathode ray days of broadcast television. Like Channel 56 would have Creature Feature and Creature Double Feature, where you would get this type of entertainment. And sometimes there was also like Son of Svengoolie, who is this he was the host. You know, he would open up the crypt. He had the makeup on, look like a half-assed Alice Cooper. Not anything against Mr. Svengoolie himself or his sons. It's just that's just me being a funny description. But tonight's movie is 1968's Dracula Has Risen from the Grave. Oh, and here we have our Hammer hottie. Yes, you're being a male and male gazy. Sure, why not? It's movies. There is male gaze. There is female gaze. That's a fucking gaze. Look at that. This is about, look at that. That's Christopher Lee. The power of seduction. The sexual inertness of the, what am I trying to say? The basic quality of the vampire is this primal, seductive, and predatory form of undead life or being. And Dracula has risen from the grave, and that's the trailer. And what I like to do is I like to play the movie at 10 times speed. And hopefully that will avoid any copyright strikes. I won't be able to do this with rated R movies because I can't show any real nudity. But that's the thing about these Hammer movies. They don't have nudity. They have scantily clad ladies, beautiful British ingenues. And it's about, where does this fit into with the continuity? What about the timeline? What about the lore? I'm not mocking us. I'm not. Really. But this is a good example, okay? What is a more horror movie like than having sequels? Think of Friday the 13th. Think of Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Hellraiser. Wow. I have at least 8 Hellraiser movies, and I've only seen about 3 of them. But still, it's like maybe 4 of them at this point. But that's what they're popular. People want more adventures. But Dracula was killed at the end of Horror of Dracula by Peter Cushing's Van Helsing. Well, he's come back. And he keeps coming back after, that's part of the evolution of this vampire myth for this specific world, this specific Hammer world, is that we can revive Dracula through his ashen remains by adding human sacrifice of blood to it. And he will reappear as his Christopher Lee self. Yeah, and the red contact lenses, and just Christopher Lee has this smoldering presence. He's like charisma. He's very charismatic. And this is actually the 4th of the Hammer films that Christopher Lee has been a part of in this Dracula series. This is our 2nd in the Hammer mini-series within the series within the series. Yes, it's wheels within wheels, and everything fits. I think Kine said that in Dune. But the movie that came right after yesterday's movie, so if we're looking at this as a term of a continuity and a timeline, which it barely holds, all right? There is no continuity cop on this, keeping track of the minutia that everything fits. That didn't really matter much back then. They were just fun movies to make to get people in the movie theaters to spend their money on popcorn and to and just they were horror movies or romance movies, gangster movies, war movies, horror movies. You know, it's just part and parcel with the offerings from, you know, that's look at your Netflix, look at your Hulu, look at your your Amazon Prime. Is that still what's out there and available? Like Kids Fair, stuff like DIY stuff, and we have more categories now, but this is from a more basic time, in an antediluvian age, the 20th century. But yeah, so the second movie was called Brides of Dracula, and that was made in 1960. The third movie was called Dracula, Prince of Darkness, and that was in 1966. This is from 1968, and then they're going to have like at least 4 Dracula movies with Christopher Lee, and Peter Cushing's coming back too. Peter Cushing is not in this movie. Between 1968 and 1973, they're going to make, I think, 5 films. Let's count. Maybe it's 4. It's at least 4, yeah. Dracula Has Risen from the Grave, Taste the Blood of Dracula, Dracula 1980-1972, and The Satanic Rites of Dracula, also known as Count Dracula and His Vampires. There is also the In Search of Dracula, where Christopher Lee plays the historic Vlad Tepes. Yeah, the historical Dracula of the mid-1400s. The actual person, where the word Dracul was another name for demon. And Bram Stoker found this all out doing research for his book, Dracula, his vampire book. Indeed. So yeah, this movie, I mean, all we have is there's a Catholic priest that comes to Castle Dracula to perform an exorcism. You see the Scanley Cup? This is what I'm talking about. Male gaze, buxom British beauties of the 60s. Look at the lighting. Look at the costumes. Look at the hair. I mean, I just love everything about this. I love the heaving bosoms. Boobs. I said it. And so by performing this exorcism, the priest accidentally awakens the spirit of Count Dracula, who is rising from the grave in this. It's funny. The second movie in 1960, Brides of Dracula, did not have Christopher Lee. It was no Count Dracula in it. There were just some some residual vampires left over from the first movie they didn't get to. So Peter Cushing shows up as Van Helsing to dispatch this latest evil. And Christopher Lee returns in 1966 as Dracula, Prince of Darkness. But this is funny. This is how Dracula comes back the first time. So you want to think of continuity and timeline and how does this all make sense, and like how is he was dead in the last one. Okay, so one of the victims is killed by the housekeeper at Castle Dracula. Why are there victims in Castle Dracula? You'll have to watch the story yourself, actually. And but the servant kills the victim and mixes his blood with Dracula's ashes, reviving the Count. And so they got these scenes where they mix the blood of Dracula, or the ashes of Dracula with blood, and it's like someone took an Alka-Seltzer, and it's foaming over with red food dye. It's it's so funny, these special effects, but they're on point. They're cheesy, and it's a movie. It's a movie. That's it. It's for entertainment. So that's how Dracula returns in the third movie. This is the fourth movie. So Dracula once again, after being put into freezing waters and drowning in the third movie, his body is still around, undead and kicking, and to be further used in later movies and shit. But the next movie has the return of Peter Cushing, I believe. Taste the Blood of Dracula. And no, that doesn't have Christopher Lee as well. Christopher Lee was billed in the third one as well. And Dracula, Prince of Darkness, this third movie, 1966. We don't have that one. He was the star of the second one without Christopher Lee. But the third one, they reuse footage from the end of Horror of Dracula, 1958, the chase scene where he's chasing down Christopher Lee, and it's Peter Cushing as Dr. Van Helsing, uncredited archive footage only. Yeah, so he's like basically spliced into the beginning of the movie, and the rest of the movie does not have Peter Cushing in it. But for the sake of the argument, Peter Cushing appears in the first 3 Dracula Hammer movies. He was also doing double duty over at Frankenstein. He was Dr. Victor Von. This is great about 1966 Dracula, Prince of Darkness, where Dracula does not speak in the film, save for a few hisses. According to Christopher Lee, "I didn't speak in that picture. The reason was very simple. I read the script and saw the dialogue. I said to Hammer, if you think I'm going to say any of these lines, you're very much mistaken." That's my best Christopher Lee accent. I love Christopher Lee. That's funny. And this is great. And you gotta love it, like when the talent stands up and as part of this artistic process, contributing to what we get here. I mean, less is more as well. But yeah, like this is the 4th Hammer Dracula movie starring Christopher Lee. Tomorrow we'll be doing Taste the Blood of Dracula from 1970, where we're starting to get the movies later into the timeline. So by Dracula AD 1972, we've ditched the whole thing of set pieces and period pieces. We've now brought Dracula into the present, or the then present of modern London 1972, showing all the sights and sounds of downtown London. Here we go. All right. It's Christopher Lee with his red contact lenses. He was Saruman in Lord of the Rings. He was Count Dooku in the Star Wars prequels. Love Christopher Lee. I actually read a book that he read to me. I love Audible.com. And if you don't know, if you have an Audible.com, an Audible audiobooks subscription, you too can read the classic vampire novels. Bram Stoker's Dracula. It's free with your subscription. 15 hours or so of runtime on that. Pretty good book. I just reread it. A lot of good research for this show. And also a vampire story that was released 26 years before that, Carmilla by Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu, and which is really sexy and erotically charged, and for such an innocent time, or not an innocent time, but I mean, with different standards and mores that you would actually push the envelope of having a young lesbian couple romance. Not really. I mean, it's how consummated is it? Does the vampire's bite equal consent or consummation of a relationship? There is always something sexual to the vampire, and it's a big part, maybe, of what drives the undying attention that we seem to be giving to these predators. Yeah, I mean, again, yeah, was it a good movie? Whatever, dude. It was a Saturday afternoon, Sunday afternoon kind of like horror movie, man. This is a popcorn movie. We're meant to have fun. There's no thinking involved in this whatsoever. If we're overthinking of like if how Dracula is returning is ruining our experience here, maybe you shouldn't be watching Dracula movies. There's a suspension of disbelief, and then there is just, let's enjoy it. And I'm going to enjoy these old movies. They're pretty fun. We're going to be doing, the Taste the Blood of Dracula tomorrow from 1970. Another Hammer horror movie, Dracula, starring this Dracula, Sir Christopher Lee. Christopher Lee is in our countdown a few times. We might see him later on in the year too. I mean, later on in the month, near the end. Stay tuned, and we'll find out when we get to the end of the month what's one of my all-time favorites, and it's very culturally significant for me too, because I think there's a lot to unpack, and we'll get there when we get there. And thank you so much for tuning in. Like and subscribe. I would love to earn your subscription. We're doing the 31 days of Halloween. This has been the 14th day of Halloween, October the 14th. And this is our movie for today. Yeah, we're doing a horror movie each day in October. And there's a bunch of cats out there on Twitter that we all follow each other, and we're sharing our suggestions because we're all doing it together but separately, you know? We're not sharing the same movie list. It's great to see the robustness in the different titles, and I'm like getting really inspired for next year with using this as suggestions. So yeah, there's Steve Kenobi out there, there's Purple Valkyrie out there, Salty Texas. There's a whole, that's just the top of the iceberg, and even more. So tune in, and there's some good geeky stuff available for you. And thank you so much for tuning in. God bless. Namaste. Keep wearing garlic, and I'm not even a Christian, but I'm going to start wearing a rosary around my neck. 'Tis the season. Oh, gosh. Let the right ones in, okay? Cheers. See you tomorrow, okay? Bye-bye.